Celtic Badass of the Week showcases a different badass person of Celtic heritage each week. Those who exemplify the give no shit attitude and come out on top. They may come from our past or our present, but rest assured they come from all walks of life and legend. They are men, women, even old ladies and pirate queens. You don't have to be a muscled-up Celt in a fur kilt swinging a mighty sword. You can just be a 4'11" Welsh woman and suffragette who knows jujitsu. Most of these badasses are all too real. While some may be only legend, badass legends though. The only prerequisite for this title is Celtic blood and badassedness.
This week's Celtic badass, William Wallace. Alright, Wallace led the Scottish rebellion against Edward I and inflicted a famous defeat on the English army at Stirling Bridge. Now, you probably saw this in the Blockbuster movie Braveheart. No, you didn't. You say, well, since when do we get our history from the movies? No, we get most of our info about Wallace from a blind poet. Yep, that's right. The blind poet, Blind Harry. But despite that, he is remembered as a patriot and a national hero today. And he should be. He was a badass. But for more reasons than you think. William Wallace was born in the 1270s in Elderslie in Renfrewshire into a gentry family. Very little is known about his early years, and there are significant periods of his life for which there are no reliable sources. Basically, there was no Google back then, so we just can't, other than the ever reliable blind poet. Now, the following information is from the records of the Scottish and English governments. In 1296, the ever-ruthless bastard Edward I of England had taken advantage of the succession crisis in Scotland and imposed his dickheadedness as ruler with the English administration. Within months, Scottish unrest was widespread, kind of like after a Celtic and Rangers football match. Alright. In May 1297, Wallace attacked the town of Lanark, killing the English sheriff, and unrest quickly became full-blown rebellion. Men flocked to join Wallace, and he began to drive the English out of Fife and Perthshire. In September 1297, Wallace defeated a much larger English force at the Battle of Stirling Bridge. This and subsequent military successes severely weakened the English hold on Scotland. Wallace then launched raids into England. In late 1297 or early 1298, he was knighted and appointed Guardian of the Kingdom in the name of John Balliol, the deposed King of Scotland. But he was less than enthusiastic about his new title. He had become this badass of Scottish fury for a far greater reasons than just to kill Englishmen, which I assume is fun since, Scots have been doing it for so long. The shock of the defeat at Stirling rallied the English around Edward, who was pissed that this little peasant of a man had handed his armies their ass so far. So he marched north with an even greater army. Upon hearing that the whole English army was heading his way, Wallace's strategy became to avoid confrontation, gradually withdraw, and maybe attend some anger management classes. Send Longshanks a nice "sorry I kicked your army's ass" Hallmark card. Alright, but not being able to find such a card at the local Walgreens, Wallace withdrew, but was smart enough to destroy the countryside as he went, forcing Edwards to march deeper and deeper into Scotland like a bad 70s porn. In July 1298, the Scottish and English armies met near Falkirk, and the Scots, they were defeated. Wallace escaped, though, and little is known of his movements, but at some stage he resigned the guardianship and was succeeded by Robert de Bruce and John Comyn. Now, Wallace then went abroad, notably to France, because that's where the hot, easy girls are, and to seek support for the Scottish cause, of course. He returned to Scotland in 1303, and in his absence, Robert de Bruce had accepted a truce with Edward I, and in 1304, John Comyn came to terms with the English as well. Wallace was excluded from these terms. Basically, they threw him under the bus, and the English king offered a large sum of money to anyone who killed or captured him. William Wallace was basically an outlaw. Now, Wallace was later seized near Glasgow in August of 1305 and transported to London. He was charged and tried with treason, which of course he denied, saying that he had never sworn allegiance to the English king. And I'm sure that they gave him a fair and impartial trial. Yeah, right. His execution was held on the 23rd of August, where he was hung, drawn, and quartered. His head was placed on London Bridge, and his limbs displayed in Newcastle, Berwick, Stirling, and Perth. Those are the few facts that we have, but one question remains unanswered, and I think this makes him even more badass than I had already thought. Now, the question is, why did the badass William Wallace start his rebellion? What drove this commoner to risk his life, property, hell, everything, to take on the greatest military in the entire world at that time? Blind Harry's poem, Wallace, in 1478, depicts him as being in love with a woman called Marion Bradford. Tragically, she was murdered in Lanark for not submitting to an English soldier's lurid advances. That bastard. Wallace's blood came to a boil, and in a fit of rage, William killed the English sheriff of Lanark, Sir William Heselrigg, in retaliation. Even though this was a recorded event, there is no evidence of Marion's existence. She isn't mentioned at all, which is not that unusual for the times. Record-keeping was sketchy at best, usually left to priests and monks. The English government cared little if the peasants of rural Scotland were recorded or not. Truth is, Wallace, well, he was already a staunch opponent of English occupation before the Lanark incident even occurred. When the rest of the nobility submitted to Edward I's claim of lordship over Scotland in 1291 and again in 1296, William refused. So something like the murder of a loved one could be all that was needed to set off William Wallace. Not caring whether he lived or died now that Marion Bradford was dead, is said to be the reason he began his rebellion, and his carelessness with his own life was the reason he was so successful. You know, a warrior with no fear is a badass, unsurmountable enemy. Now, I prefer to think that he fought the English to avenge a lost love. It's romantic, and, well, you know, I'm a bit of a romantic. Then when he was successful, well, he just went with it, because he knew that his scenario that probably played out 1,000 times with other men's women, mothers, and children. You know, heartache was widespread. Now, he unknowingly took the role of savior of Scotland because so few would. Unhonorable nobles, posture for power and money. It took a badass man with vengeance in his heart that could not be quelled to be that savior. Now, he came from a place where so many had so little, sometimes even something to live for. So if he could give them a reason to regain some sense of pride or hope, then his sacrifice would be worth it. Not for Scotland, no, but for the average person who just wanted a better life. Now that's badass.